Hello, my name is Kimberly, and this is my channel, The Amazing Kimmeth. Today we are going over the Warhammer story Redemption Corps by Rob Sanders. So grab yourself a cup of recaf or Amersec, and let's get into this story. In the beginning of each chapter, there is a bit that's in italics. At first, when I started reading the book, I thought it was a dream, but it's more of major foreshadowing. It's letting the reader know the action that's going on later in the story. So you're kind of trying to figure out, okay, how do we lead up to this? How does the story end up in this spot? And it also helps the author at the end not have to fill in a bunch of details. They just state, hey, this is what's going on. You kind of delve into it that way, and it does help with the story. I do think it would be a little difficult to follow if you listen to this via an audiobook. Our main character is Major Mortison of the Hive World, Gomorrah. Gomorrah has been destroyed, and Mortison is the only survivor. Mortison, who leads the Redemption Corps, is tasked to stop a mutiny against a well-hated commissar. The mutiny is mostly done by the Volskins, who are known to be more than just rough and tumble, and they're kind of cutthroat and to themselves. Mortison is able to stop this mutiny, and he finds the commissar. We're then introduced to the cadet Commissar Krieg. No, he is not of the Krieg, that just happens to be his last name. Krieg is tasked by the Adepta Sororitas, or the Battle Sisters, to kind of spy on Mortison. He is suspect of creating a cult of personality, and the Battle Sisters task Krieg to just watch him, see what's going on, if there's any sort of issues, to take care of it. And Krieg, of course, does this willingly because he knows that the Emperor expects. Almost immediately after Krieg is introduced to Mortison and his crew, they are assigned on a mission. And of course, it doesn't go well, but it makes for a good story. Krieg finds himself in a really terrible situation at one point where he is pinned down and his men walk away from him. Of course, Krieg is able to get out of this situation, and he is able to confront the men that left him there to hang dry. And this kind of solidifies how these men view Krieg. But at the end, Krieg is able to get to the target for his mission, and he has a plan to get out. The story then cuts to Mortison and his crew, and they also get to their intended target. At this point, Mortison finds out that the world they are on isn't infiltrated by cultists as they originally thought, by something way worse. I'm not going to go into it because it's a bit of a spoiler, but the world is inhabited and being infiltrated by more than just cultists. Krieg is able to get himself assembled, and they find out a little bit more on his end of different things going on in this world that shouldn't be there and is a bigger problem than they could have imagined. He is able to meet up at the rendezvous with Mortison, and they're able to get off the planet. But of course, the entire time, there is a ton of chaos. There is amazing action going on at this point. But again, I don't want to go into it. It's full of spoilers. Once Krieg and Mortison get back to where they need to be, Krieg is able to go to the Battle Sisters and have a conversation, and he's basically told he still needs to spy on Mortison, he still needs to gather information. And then Krieg and the Redemption Corps, they are assigned to a death world. There's a ton of action at this point, there's a ton of chaos that goes on, there's a lot of information that's brought to light. The ship ends up getting ambushed, and so much erupts at this point. And then all of the little parts in the beginning of the chapters that are in italics, it all starts to come together and it makes sense. And from there, there's even more action. Krieg and Mortison have to pretty much fight for their lives to get out of it. And it ends at such an amazing and a satisfying exit for these guys. This story does end with a bunch of chaos, a bunch of blood, a bunch of gore, a bunch of action. What else would you expect out of Warhammer? Like I said, I don't recommend listening to this book. I think the beginning of the chapters might be confusing unless the narrator makes it clear that it's different, that it's not part of the main story as you go along. However, this is a good book to read. And that's all that I have to say about Redemption Core. This was a great book. I do recommend giving it a read. Have you read this book? What did you think about it? And as always, what should I read next?